When Shaquille O'Neal pulled his black SUV into the gas station on the outskirts of Baton Rouge, he had one plan. Fill the tank, get back on the road. And then a man walked out from inside the station. Yellow safety vest, faded at the shoulders. Slow, steady steps. Not lazy, just the walk of someone who has learned to save his energy for the long day ahead. His right hand trembled slightly as he reached for the pump. Not from sickness, from years of hard work catching up with him. Shaq went still inside the car because he recognized that face. From a night 30 years ago, 2 a.m. The LSU basketball court. A big college kid shooting hoops alone in the dark. And this man had not told him to leave. He had pulled up a chair, sat down, and watched. In silence. The man standing outside right now had no idea who he was pumping gas for. But Shaq knew exactly what he owed this man. He had known for 30 years. He just never had the chance to pay it back. And what Shaq did not know, yet, what was sitting inside the old man's worn wallet, was about to make sure he never drove away. Earl Guidry woke up at 5:12 a.m. Not because of an alarm, not because of habit. He woke up because he had trained himself to lie still and listen to his wife breathe. To check if the breathing was steady, if it was heavy, if it sounded any different from the night before. He had done this every morning for 2 years, ever since the doctor told him that Marlene's illness would not go away. It could only be managed, and managing it cost money, $340 a month. Earl lay still for 3 more minutes. There was a small crack in the ceiling above the bed, up in the right corner. He had looked at that crack every morning for 2 years. It had not gotten bigger. It had not gotten smaller. It just stayed there. He sat up slowly, careful not to wake Marlene. She needed the sleep. She always needed more sleep than he wanted to admit. Their kitchen was small. The refrigerator hummed when he opened it to get the milk. The coffee was already made. He had set it up the night before. Community coffee, the red tin, bought at Walmart. $7.99 for a box of 30 bags. Earl had been drinking this same coffee for 20 years. Not because he liked it most, because he knew the price. $1,340. That was the pension check he got every month. After 23 years as a security guard at LSU, 23 years of walking the grounds, locking doors, checking student IDs, standing outside in the Louisiana cold in that yellow vest. 23 years. And at the end of it, they gave him a small party with a cake from Winn-Dixie, a handshake from the head of security, and $1,340 a month for the rest of his life. Minus $340 for Marlene's medicine. That left $1,000. Rent was $800. Electric ran between $90 and $120, depending on the month. Gas for the 2009 Chevy Malibu, about $60. Groceries, he tried to keep it under $150. He had learned to do this math in his head, not on paper, in his head, standing in the kitchen at 5 a.m, drinking his coffee, listening to Marlene breathe from the next room. That was why he was still working at 61. Bayou Quick Stop, Highway 61, 18 minutes from the house, if the lights were good. Earl worked 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m, $11.50 an hour. No health insurance. No paid time off. He put on the safety vest at 6:35. It was faded at both shoulders and at the elbows. He could buy a new one at Dollar General for $20. He had not bought one. $20 was 4 mornings of coffee for Marlene. He locked the front door at 6:41. It was still dark outside. November in Louisiana. The air hit him the second he stepped out, thick and wet, like a warm, damp towel pressed against his face. Smell of dirt and river water, and something faintly sweet from the sugarcane fields far off. The smell that people from Baton Rouge call home, but can never quite explain. Earl got in the car. It did not start the first time. The second try it caught. He drove through the dark with the radio off. Shaquille O'Neal had arrived in Baton Rouge the afternoon before. Not for a meeting. Not because anyone asked him. He had a business call in New Orleans the next morning. A deal on a small chain of gyms in the South. The kind of gyms that working people use after a shift, and instead of flying in, that morning, he had booked a hotel in Baton Rouge the night before. Baton Rouge. LSU. Those words had never been just a place to Shaq. He had gone to school here from 1989 to 1992. 3 years. Not the longest stretch of his life, but the stretch where he became the man the world would later know. He left the hotel at 9:20 the next morning. The call in New Orleans was at 1. Plenty of time to drive slow, maybe swing past the LSU campus before heading out. He had no clear plan, just the feeling a man in his 50s gets when he passes through the place where he used to be 20. The gas gauge hit empty on Highway 61. He saw the Bayou Quick Stop sign on the right. He pulled in. Small station, old tin roof, 2 pumps, a convenience store in the back with the windows covered in beer and lottery stickers. Smell of gasoline and hot pavement in the Louisiana morning sun. He turned off the engine, opened the door, and stepped out. Had to duck his head, turn his shoulders, fold himself out the way he had been doing for 50 years, ever since his body outgrew every door frame built for normal-sized people. And then he saw the man walking out of the store. Faded yellow safety vest, salt and pepper hair, cut short, slow and steady steps. Right hand trembling slightly as it reached for the pump handle. Not illness, just decades of work settling into the joints. Shaq went still, not because he was sure, because he was not sure, and that uncertainty was enough to freeze him where he stood. 30 years was a long time. Faces changed, voices changed, the way a man carried himself changed. But some things did not change. The slight tilt of the head to the right when looking down, the way the shoulders pulled in just before bending forward. Small things, the kind of things no one notices unless they once sat in silence for an hour and watched at 2 in the morning. Shaq sat in the car for 40 more seconds. 40 seconds is a long time to sit in a car and stare. He could drive off. There was another station not far up the road. He did not have to be sure. He did not have to do anything. But what if it was him? That was the question he could not push out of his head. Not whether he recognized the face. The real question was, if it was him, what would he say? Hey, do you remember me? That sounded like someone looking to be recognized. That was not why he wanted to get out of the car. He did not know how to start. And Shaq, a man who had stood in front of millions of people, who had sat on national television, who had negotiated deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars, was sitting in a black SUV at a gas station in Louisiana and could not figure out how to start a conversation with a pump attendant. Some things money cannot buy. Some things fame cannot prepare you for. He opened the door. 1991, October, Baton Rouge. Shaq remembered that night more clearly than most games he had ever played. He was 19, a sophomore. His body was changing faster than he could control. Too big, too fast, his feet still catching up with everything else. Coach Brown had talked to him about footwork, about keeping his center of gravity low, about moving without wasting energy. But what a coach tells you in practice and what you can actually do are two different things. He went out to the gym at 1:45 in the morning. Did not ask anyone. Did not tell anyone. Just grabbed the key from the equipment manager, a skinny guy named Marcus who was half asleep at his desk, and went out alone. The LSU gym at night was nothing special. Just a few yellow security lights coming in from outside. The sound of the ball and his shoes on the wood floor carried louder than during the day because there was nothing else. He worked the right corner. 10 shots. 20 shots. Step. Angle. Force. Wrong. Again. Wrong. Again. 20 minutes in, he heard the door open. He turned around, already getting ready to explain himself. Why he was here, why he was not breaking any rules, why he needed to stay. The explanation that a big black college kid keeps ready for every situation. But the security guard did not ask anything. He walked in, looked around, looked at Shaq, gave one slow nod, the kind that says, "I see you, it's fine." Then pulled a plastic chair from the corner of the room, set it down along the sideline, and sat down. Did not say a word. Shaq looked at him for a second, then turned back to the basket. The guard sat there for a full hour. Did not talk. Did not fall asleep. Just watched. Sometimes he gave a small nod when Shaq made a shot. Sometimes he looked up at the dark seats above, like he was thinking about something else entirely. At 3 in the morning, he stood up, pushed the chair back against the wall, looked at Shaq one more time, and walked out, without saying a single word. Shaq never learned his name. Never asked. But that night he hit the right corner better than he ever had before. Not because he had figured out the technique. Because for the first time in months, someone had sat there and watched, without needing him to be anything more than what he already was. That memory was what got him out of the car. He stepped out. The morning wind off the fields was not cold, just thick and wet. Smell of gasoline mixed with damp grass from the field behind the station. The blacktop was already soaking up heat, and it was barely past 9. The man was pushing the pump nozzle into the side of the car. Had not looked up yet. Shaq stood beside his SUV. Did not speak right away. He watched the man from about 6 feet away, the distance you stand when you have not decided yet if you are going to move closer. The right hand trembled slightly on the nozzle. Not much, just the small shake of a man whose tendons and joints had started sending the bill for everything he had asked of them over the years. Shaq watched that hand, and he thought of the hand that had pulled a plastic chair across a gym floor in the dark in 1991. He did not step back. "Hot one today," Earl said it without looking up. Low voice. Steady. The voice of a man who had said the same greeting to enough customers that it came out on its own now, without thinking. "Yeah," Shaq said. "Louisiana. Where you coming from?" Earl looked up for the first time. His eyes paused for just a beat, the way everyone's eyes pause the first time they register someone, over 7 feet tall, and then dropped back to the meter on the pump. "Atlanta," Shaq said, "passing through on the way to New Orleans." "Baton Rouge is a nice stop," Earl said. Not quite a compliment, not quite an invitation to keep talking, just filling the space, the way older men do. Shaq nodded. 20 seconds of quiet. The sound of gas moving through the line. A truck going past out on the road. Earl had not recognized him. That was clear. The man in front of him was just a very large customer heading to New Orleans. Nothing more. Shaq looked over at the store window. A Bud Light sticker in the bottom corner was peeling away on one side. Inside, a kid around 10 years old was staring out with heavy eyes. "How long you been working here?" Shaq asked. Earl's eyebrows moved slightly. Not because the question was strange, but because customers did not usually ask it. 2 years, he said. "Used to work security at LSU. Retired, but sitting home didn't suit me." He said, that last part a little quieter. Like a man explaining something he had explained too many times, and had mostly stopped believing himself. Shaq looked at him. "LSU," he said. "How many years?" 23, Earl said. No pride in it. No regret either. Just the number. The way someone says their age or their address. 88 to 2011. Shaq did the math. 1988 to 2011. That meant in 1991, this man had been 3 years into the job. Anything stand out from back then? Shaq asked. Plain voice. No hint in it. No lead. Earl thought about it. Real thinking, not reaching for something polite to say. "There was one night," he said slowly. "I remember one night. But you don't want to hear about that." "No," Shaq said. "I do." Earl shifted his weight against the pump. The move of a man going from attendant to storyteller. Small change, but you could see it. "I used to walk the gym at night," he started. "Not because they made me. Just because I liked it in there at night. Quiet. No one hollering." He smiled a little. The smile of a man remembering something good. "One night in October, I don't remember the exact year, early 90s sometime. I opened the gym door, and there's this kid in there by himself. Big as a refrigerator." He stopped. Not an insult. Just big. Had to be over 7 feet. Working the right corner. Same shot, over and over. Shaq said nothing. "I was supposed to run him out," Earl went on. "That was the rule. After 11, no one in the gym, without a coach. But I looked at that kid, the way he was working, the way he wasn't quitting even. When he kept missing, I couldn't make myself do it." He shook his head slowly. The shake of a man who still has not fully figured out his own decision. I pulled up a chair and sat down. Didn't say anything. Just sat. The pump clicked steadily. The meter was climbing toward $30. That kid worked for another full hour after that. Barely noticed I was there. Just kept going. And I sat and watched. Earl paused. "I don't know why I did it. Marlene, my wife, she always asks me about decisions I make that don't have a reason. She says I do things I can't explain." He smiled again, a little sadder this time. "She's right." "Did that kid make it?" Shaq asked. His voice came out flatter than he meant it to. Earl looked up. That's the thing, he said. I don't know. Never got his name. He didn't say it. I didn't ask. Next morning, I went back to work like normal. Week later, I didn't see him on the court anymore. He shrugged. Maybe he quit. Maybe he graduated. I don't know. The pump clicked off at $35.80. Earl stepped over and pulled out the nozzle. Same steady routine. Right hand still trembling faintly as he hung the nozzle back on the pump. Shaq watched that hand. Then he asked the question he had been holding since he stepped out of the car. You remember what that kid looked like? Earl finished hanging up the nozzle and turned back to face Shaq. And this time he really looked. Not the look a gas station attendant gives a customer. The look of a man trying to match an old piece of memory to what is standing right in front of him. 5 seconds passed. 10 seconds. Earl did not say anything. He turned and walked toward the register inside the store. Shaq followed, had to duck through the low doorframe. Inside, the store was small enough that Shaq took up almost a third of the room just by standing still. Smell of old coffee and plastic and candy that had been sitting in the display too long. The 10-year-old kid from earlier watched Shaq with eyes that kept getting wider, then looked at his mom behind the counter, then looked back at Shaq. Earl reached into his back pocket and pulled out his wallet. Brown leather, worn at the corners. The snap had given out a while back. He kept it closed with a rubber band. He pulled the band off, opened the wallet to find his card. And the newspaper clipping slipped out. Not hard, just slid out from between the bills and the folded papers and drifted down onto the counter. The sound it made was so small that only Shaq and Earl heard it. Yellow with age, folded and refolded so many times that the creases had become thin tears at the corners. Cut small, the kind of cut someone makes from a larger page. Earl picked it up, started to push it back into the wallet. Then he stopped. He turned the clipping over, looked at the back. Then, no explanation, no words, he pushed it across the counter toward Shaq. Shaq looked down. Front of the clipping, a black and white photo, blurred with time. A small headline above it. NBA Draft 1992. A list of names. And one name circled in ballpoint pen. Cheap blue ink, gone pale, but still readable. Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq did not look up right away. He turned the clipping over. The back, handwriting in ink, that had almost faded all the way through 30 years, but if you tilted it toward the light coming through the window, you could still read it. This kid will make it. No date, no name, just that sentence, and a period at the end, a round, firm period from someone who wrote down what they believed and did not feel the need to say anything more. Shaq stood still, with the clipping in both hands. In a small convenience store attached to a gas station on Highway 61 outside Baton Rouge, at 9:47 in the morning on a Tuesday in November, the tallest man in the room stood quietly and could not find a single word for a long moment. Earl looked at him, then at the clipping, then back at Shaq. And this time he really looked, not at a big customer, but at the face, at the set of the shoulders, at the way the man in front of him was holding that scrap of newsprint, with both hands like it might fall apart. Wait, Earl said. His voice did not go up at the end, did not come down, just one word, sitting in the air between them. Shaq looked up, 2 men looking at each other. 30 years. A gas station. A yellowed piece of newspaper. Wait, Earl said again lower. You're that kid. Not a question. Shaq set the clipping back on the counter. Carefully, right side up, the same way he had picked it up. I'm Shaquille O'Neal, he said. Even voice. No rise, no fall. Like answering something simple. I was practicing in the LSU gym that night. 1991. Earl said nothing for 11 seconds. Shaq counted. He had not meant to, but he counted. The woman behind the register looked through the small window that divided the back from the store floor. The 10-year-old stopped chewing. Earl looked down at his own hand. Right hand, still trembling slightly. He pressed it flat on the counter like he was trying to hold it still. You, he said. Just the one word. Nothing after it. You, Shaq said back. Same way. I never knew your name, Shaq said. 30 years and I never knew your name. Earl shook his head slowly. Earl Guidry. Earl. Shaq said it like he was writing it somewhere in his head. In the spot that had been blank for 30 years. Why do you still have this? Earl nodded toward the clipping. Not accusing, just genuinely asking. Shaq looked at the clipping. That's exactly what I was going to ask you. Earl looked out the window. The Louisiana sun had gone white, the kind of midday white that visitors call beautiful and locals call exhausting. I don't know, he said, and he meant it. I cut that out the morning after the draft came out. No reason I could explain. Just, I saw that name on the list, and I thought it was the same kid from that night. He stopped. I wasn't sure. Could have been wrong. But I cut it out anyway. You wrote something on the back, Shaq said. Earl did not answer right away. Marlene kept asking me what I was carrying in my wallet, he said, after a moment. I couldn't explain it. I just told her I wanted to know if that kid made it. He smiled a little, not sad this time. Just light. She said I was crazy. Did you want to know? Shaq asked. Whether he made it. Earl looked straight at him. You're standing right here in front of me, Earl said. I think I got my answer. Shaq nodded once. Slow. You want to sit down for a few minutes? He asked. They went outside. 2 white plastic chairs against the wall of the store, the kind of cheap plastic chairs you find at every gas station in the South, the kind that creak when a big man settles into them. Shaq sat down carefully. The chair groaned, but held. Earl sat in the other one and rested his hands on his knees. The sun had climbed higher. The overhang shade covered about half where they were sitting. The smell of hot blacktop and distant wet grass was still in the air. They talked. Not the kind of talking that follows a script. No formal introductions. No polite questions. No clean ending planned. This was the kind of talking that skips past all of that because something bigger is in the room and both people know it. Earl talked about the 23 years at LSU. Not the big things. The small things. Drunk students at 3 in the morning. The storm in 2005, when he stayed on campus for 3 days straight watching over the buildings. The night LSU won the championship, and the whole campus shook, and he stood at the gate alone, listening to the shouting echo from the stadium. Shaq listened, did not interrupt, did not redirect. Then Earl brought up Marlene. Not because he meant to. Shaq had asked her name, and once Earl started, he could not stop. 2 years of illness. The medicine every month. The mornings he ran the numbers in his head, before he even poured his coffee. You need anything? Shaq asked. Straight. No softening around it. Earl looked at him. No. You sure? Sure. Earl's voice did not harden. Did not go up. He just meant it. I'm not telling you this to ask for something. I'm telling you because you asked. Shaq nodded. He knew that voice. The voice of someone who grew up with nothing and still managed to keep his dignity. The kind of dignity that does not let you take what you did not ask for. He did not offer money. No check. No offer of anything that would make the man sitting next to him feel like he was being pitted. He just said, Can you sit out here a little longer? I'm not in any hurry. Earl looked at his watch. He had 3 hours left in his shift. No customers waiting. The woman inside was handling the register. Sure, he said. They sat quiet for a while, not saying anything, not needing to. Traffic moved past out on Highway 61. Somewhere behind the station, a bird was calling from the brush. The plastic chairs creaked when one of them shifted weight. Shaq looked out at the road. He thought about 2 in the morning in 1991. The gym, the dark, the sound of his sneakers on the hardwood, and the man who had pulled up a chair and said nothing, just stayed. That silence had not been empty. It had been the silence of someone saying, I see you. I'm here. You don't have to be anything more than what you already are. Now he was sitting in a plastic chair outside a gas station on Highway 61, next to a 61-year-old man in a faded yellow vest. And he understood that this, just this, was the only right answer to 30 years of not knowing how to pay it back. Not money, not words, just sitting here, the same way Earl had sat in 1991. You know, Earl said, quiet, not looking over. That night I sat and watched you practice. I remember thinking, that kid is going to make it. I know, Shaq said. You wrote it on the back of the paper. I wrote it because I believed it. Earl paused. Not because you were big. Not because you were good. Because you wouldn't quit. 2 in the morning, alone, nobody watching, and you still wouldn't quit. Shaq did not answer right away. The wind moved through. A pickup truck pulled into the station across the road. You were watching, Shaq said. You were watching, and I didn't know. Earl nodded once. That was enough, Shaq said. They sat for another 20 minutes. Nobody checked the time. Nobody said anything important. Just two men on plastic chairs under a gas station overhang in Louisiana, looking out at the morning road. When Shaq stood up, he held out his hand. Not the handshake of two strangers ending a conversation. The kind where you hold on for just one extra second. "Thank you," he said. "I never got to say that." Earl looked at him. "You made it without me." "No," Shaq said. "Not exactly." He walked back to the SUV, ducked in, closed the door, started the engine. When he pulled out of the lot, he looked in the rearview mirror. Earl Guidry was still standing there watching him go. Right hand still trembling slightly at his side. Yellow vest catching the Louisiana morning light. 3 weeks later, Marlene Guidry sat in the waiting room at Baton Rouge General at 10 in the morning. Hard plastic chair. Smell of antiseptic. The PA system calling names at steady intervals. She was there for routine lab results. She came alone because Earl was on his morning shift. A nurse called her name. She stood slowly. Her knees still ached. When the weather changed, had been that way for 2 years now. In the exam room, the doctor did not start with the test results. He looked at his screen, looked at her, and said there was something he needed to ask her first. Someone had contacted the hospital 3 weeks earlier. No name, just payment information. They had paid off the full balance of Marlene Guidry's outstanding medical bills. And they had also scheduled and prepaid 12 months of her regular checkups and prescriptions, all in full, all in advance. The doctor asked if she knew who had done this. Marlene sat in the exam chair and was quiet for a moment. "No," she said. "I don't know." She got home a little before noon, sat on the sofa, looked out the kitchen window, the one that faced the small backyard with the old oak tree that Earl liked to sit under on weekends. When Earl came home at 3:30, she told him. He listened all the way through, did not ask any questions. He sat down beside her and looked out that same window. After a while he stood up, walked to the bedroom, opened the nightstand drawer, the one Marlene had always known he kept things in that he never explained. He took out the wallet, pulled off the rubber band, opened it, took out the yellowed clipping one last time. He looked at it for a moment. Front, back, the handwriting barely there, but still readable. This kid will make it. Then he folded it back up, careful, along the same worn lines, and laid it in the drawer. Closed the drawer. For the first time in 30 years, the clipping was not in his wallet. Not because he did not need it anymore. Because it had done what it came to do. Outside the window, the afternoon sun stretched long and gold across the old hardwood floor. The oak tree stood still in the soft wind. And Earl Guidry sat back down next to his wife, placed his hand over hers, right hand still trembling slightly, same as always, and did not say another word. Some things do not need explaining. Some people believe in you before the whole world knows your name, and they never ask for anything back. But the person they believed in never forgets. Not ever.